This is The Roadmap with Ted Jenkin.
Hey everybody, this is Ted Jenkin and welcome to another episode of The Roadmap right here exclusively on America's Small Business Network. Every week, folks, I try to bring you some of the brightest and best CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business owners all around the United States. We talk about this idea of starting a business, growing a business, and maybe you too will exit stage left one day as your business is successful. Check out all the episodes on ASBN.com. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in our industry as business owners, and it's a business in itself. I've got Jonathan Wilson here, who's the CEO of the FinCEN report, and I just want to start with this because I'm pretty certain 99.9% of the people watching the program today will have no idea what a FinCEN report is. So what is it and where did the idea come up for this platform?
Absolutely. And Ted, you are exactly correct. Most business owners are not aware of this new law, which is called the Corporate Transparency Act.
The Corporate Transparency Act.
Corporate Transparency Act. It was passed by Congress at the end of 2020, but it just took effect at the beginning of this year, 2024. And what it requires is almost every business in the United States needs to file this report, what we call a BOI report, with an organization called FinCEN, which is a division inside the U.S. Treasury.
And the BOI report I saw in here is a beneficial ownership information report. So let's break this down in a simple one. I've got an LLC, it's me, and I've got my spouse or partner. We're two people in this company. Who owns what? What does this look like? Do we both have to file? Does one person have to file? How does the process work exactly?
Great question. That's the question that all business owners have. The law says that the business itself, your LLC, needs to file. And what it needs to file comes in two buckets. The first bucket is information about the company, the name of the LLC, what state was it organized in, its EIN, for example. Then the company needs to tell FinCEN who are the beneficial owners, and for each one of those beneficial owners provide 5 specific pieces of information. Now, here's where it gets complicated. The term beneficial owner is actually a defined term. An individual could be a beneficial owner if they own 25% or more of the company, or if they have what's called substantial control. Substantial control itself is a page-long definition.
Is that right?
A page-long definition in the Treasury Department's regulations, and it basically means anyone who is on the board of directors, who is an officer, a CEO, a CFO, or who has any other control on the major decisions of the company. Now, in your hypothetical, where it's you and one other person, and you both equally own the company and you're the only persons in control, it's easy. It's you and your other person. So in your hypothetical, your LLC would file a report with basic information about it, and then for you and your partner, it would provide 5 pieces of information: your full legal name, your date of birth, your home residential address, and then a unique identifying number, which is either your driver's license number or your passport number, along with a photocopy of that driver's license or passport.
Why does the government want to know this information? I think a lot of business owners are going to say, I give enough stuff to the government. Gosh, they almost have all my information. Why do they want to know this? Is it some special reason, or do they want to track businesses more closely?
Well, there is a special reason, and this is a great example of Congress trying to do a good thing, and that is tracking down and fighting money laundering. Money laundering is when illegal organizations, which could be terrorist financing organizations, it could be human smuggling organizations, they create fake companies that are basically anonymous. They use those fake companies to take money from one location, open a bank account, transfer it somewhere else, and make it appear as if this money was legally generated, when in fact it's illegal proceeds. Right. That's money laundering, and that's a crime. Well, if you're the government, how do you find out which companies are fake companies and which ones are real? Well, one of the ways you do it is by having transparency into the beneficial ownership of the company. And that's what the Corporate Transparency Act is intended to promote.
You think some of it may be too that if somebody dies and they have 10 LLCs, that the family may not even know whether an LLC was open or not? I mean, certainly they could look at a tax return, but will it help, like almost there's a state lost and found a lot of times and people can't find orphan accounts? Well, could this also help with that as well?
That's an interesting problem, but this really won't help. The reason why is that the information that businesses file with FinCEN under this law is going to be confidential and private. Normal people like you and I won't be able to look this up.
Just the government.
Just the government, law enforcement, and in some instances, banks, when they have the permission of the company, they'll be allowed to get a copy from the government.
Now, I did this, Jonathan. It took me all of but 5 minutes to get my FinCEN. I literally went on, you're right, I typed in name, basic address, I put in my driver's license, I uploaded it, and boom, I had a FinCEN number instantaneously.
So that gets you your FinCEN ID. The next step would be for you to file that report on behalf of your LLC. Did you do that as well?
I see. I did do it myself. Yeah,
you did?
Do
okay.
it myself. But I realized there's a lot of people that haven't done it at all. Is there a penalty if they don't do it?
Yeah, there absolutely is. So companies that existed before 2024 have until the end of this year to file a first report. If you don't file by the deadline, there is a $591 per day fine.
Per day?
Per day.
Is that going perpetuity? Like it could be unlimited or no?
It goes up to a maximum of $10,000.
Nice.
And if the government thinks that you willfully refuse to file, that can actually be a felony. In theory, you can go to jail for that. So it is important to get it done. Now, I said that's the timing for companies that didn't exist or that existed before this year. Companies formed after January 1, 2024 have only 90 days from the date of formation to file their first report.
So every new business will have to file that report going forward. Are any exempt from this? Are there any organizations that are exempt?
There are. There are actually 23, count them, 23.
23 organizations that are exempt.
23 types of organizations.
Oh, types of organizations.
And unfortunately, this is where it also gets quite complicated. So, for example, a bank is a type of exempt entity. But what qualifies as a bank? There are federally chartered banks, state chartered banks, there are credit unions. You have to be a bank regulatory expert to know what qualifies as a bank.
Right.
That's one of the 23 categories. There is one category, though, that has the potential to apply to many small businesses. And ironically, it's called the large operating company exemption. You are exempt if you satisfy that exemption, and it has 3 requirements. To be exempt, the entity must have filed a tax return last year showing more than $5 million in gross receipts from U.S. sources. The business must have a physical presence in the United States. You can't have 20 people working from home. And you must have 20 or more full-time employees, and there's a definition about what qualifies as a full-time employee. But if you satisfy all 3 of those, then you are a so-called large operating company, and you don't have to file.
And my understanding is that there's some 360,000 HOAs around America that HOAs in and of themselves will have to file as well?
That's exactly right. HOAs, or homeowner associations, are a type of nonprofit corporation. There is an exemption for not-for-profit entities, but the way it's worded doesn't cover HOAs. So roughly,
501c3s won't have to do this in general, but HOAs will.
In general, but even for 501c3s, it can get complicated. Tax lawyers argue what counts and what doesn't. But for homeowner associations, they by and large will not be exempt. They will have to file before the end of the year.
So if there's master organizations that run the HOAs, will the HOA itself file, or those master organizations will file?
Great question. In that particular industry, they're called management companies.
Yeah, the management companies.
Right. So for example, you might live at Shady Acres. Shady Acres, Inc. is
Feels
a
like
not-for-profit.
that's where I would live, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But Shady Acres might be managed by Acme Management Corporation. Under the law, it's Shady Acres, Inc. that is going to have to file. As a practical matter, the management company might be holding the hand of the board members at Shady Acres who need to provide their data, but they're going to have to file. And HOAs, for example, are a good example of an organization that needs help from a filing service. Imagine that you and 4 others are on the board of Shady Acres. Do you really want to share your driver's license, your home residential address, and your date of birth with those 4 other neighbors of yours? Probably not. So companies like FinCENReport.com make it possible for those associations to keep individual data private while simultaneously making it available to the entity that has to file the report.
Very nice. So for folks that are watching this today, what do you do exactly, and how can you help business owners, HOAs, any of those organizations out there?
Absolutely. So our website is at FinCENReport.com, which is FINCEN report.com. And you can go there and you can click on the button to get started. There's no charge for getting started. And what that does is allows you to create a report. So Ted Jenkins can have a report with your name, date of birth, and all that. And all of that is free. Now, if your LLC wants to file through our system, there's another button to press that creates an account for the company, and you can then populate it with information, and you can connect it via email to all the other beneficial owners. If Ted Jenkin is a member of Shady Acres Association, you can create a separate account for Shady Acres Association, connect to the other beneficial owners through their email address. Everyone's data remains private, but Shady Acre Association is then able to file its report extracting the confidential
what's
data.
the normal filing fee?
Right. Most companies are going to pay a filing fee of $199.
Of course.
That covers the initial report plus 1 year of service. And the reason why you need the year is if anybody changes their data, that triggers the need for an amendment to be filed. Now, the amendments are all included at no additional charge, and the amendment is due within 30 days or else the $591 per day fine.
Very
so that's
good,
what we do.
Very good stuff today.
Yeah.
Jonathan, thanks so much for sharing this with our audience. I mean, folks, go to FinCENreport.com. Of course, today you learned there's 591 reasons why you want to get this done by the end of this year, or you may start paying penalties as much as potentially being charged with a felony. This is the data that we bring you every week right here in America's Small Business Network. Thanks so much for watching this informative session of The Roadmap. I'm your host, Ted Jenkin. Have a great week.
Thanks for watching The Roadmap with Ted Jenkin.